Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's December 31, 2019, and this is episode 691. As I sit in my studio on New Year's Eve 2019, writing the post for the last podcast of the year, I'm feeling somewhat overwhelmed as I reflect on the year and try to figure out where the last 12 months have gone. My plan for this post was to share my personal top 10 photos for the year, but by the time I'd finished writing what I expected to be a few short paragraphs of reflection, I found myself with a full episode, so I'll share my top 10 next week. 2019 wasn't a bad year, but as 2018 ended, I remember telling myself that 2019 was going to be better, and it was, although I was hoping it would be much better, not marginally. You might recall that I had issues in Morocco in 2018, both with the bullies on the customs gate and with the mysterious illness that knocked me for six towards the end of the tour and kept me from doing anything at all for 2 full weeks after I returned home. We never did find out what it was, but it took a full 7-day course of antibiotics to rid me of the cough and congestion, and I was still as weak as a kitten as we finally got rid of it by around the end of the first week of December. A doctor would later look at my blood test results and tell me in hindsight that I should have been hospitalised. I was really ill, my wife and I both knew that, but the doctor that I did see apparently didn't have it in him to read my blood test results. As weak as I felt though, here in Japan it's customary to clean the house before the year ends so that we leave our dirt in the previous year and enter the new year clean. One of my main jobs in this period is to clean our windows. I'm somewhat embarrassed to admit that I only clean our windows once a year at this time, but like the elderly Japanese men that make their wives cry by saying thank you very seldom, it's always really nice to see the crisp winter sun shining through our freshly cleaned windows as we wind down for the year. I was so weak at the end of 2018, I recall really struggling to clean my windows. And I really only started to get my strength back as I embarked on the first of my 3 winter tours here in Japan. I'm setting off for the first of the 2020 tours in less than a week now, and I'm looking forward immensely to meeting this year's group and spending some time with Brian Matias on our landscape tour, which is going to be a blast. I intend to take my new Rollei TLR camera and a box of film too, and I hope to get some nice medium format shots of the winter landscape as time allows. The tours went great in 2019, as did my Namibia tour in May, and I look forward to spending the second half of 2019 completing my mentorship system, but a number of hiccups prevented me from completing the final steps. So that's coming in the spring of 2020 now. Despite my not planning an autumn tour to make time to complete it, that time just ran away with me due to various personal issues. I'm not going to go into detail, but let's just say that the mid-50s turned out to be a very tough time on my wife and I as we came to terms with getting older. I'd also had a runny nose after my Moroccan Malay, and though I thought it was some kind of allergy, until a hospital visit between my second and third winter tours resulted in us finding out that I was leaking cerebrospinal fluid. It turns out that the hole in my dura mater left by the brain tumour that I had surgery to remove 9 years ago and the coughing in November and December had torn a wound from the surgery at the back of my nose, allowing the fluid to leak out. The doctors wanted to operate to block it up, but I asked them to get my historical yearly MRIs from their main hospital, and when I returned from my third winter tour, An inspection of the file shows that I've been leaking CSF for around 5 years now, and I've been fine. The main problem was the tear from the coffin, which I had opened up myself. So I figured I could close it up, and that's what I did. I took it easy for a few months, and by April the leak sealed itself. That was a bit scary again for a while, but it's all good now, so nothing to worry about. It's going to take more than a hole in my brain to stop this photographer from enjoying life to the full. I did learn a few things, though, from this last year, and apart from the importance of not coughing too hard and too often, I learned that I need to spend more quality time with my wife, and I also learned that my time management skills are going to pot. There's probably a disorder name for what I have, but I tend to work way too hard on projects that I dream up, and they completely consume me until I reach a point where I can back off from them again. My latest project started around 10 days ago and has pretty much kept me down Periscope until today. I was working on a shell script to update the EXIF data and images that I've shot on film and scanned into my computer. I'm relatively accustomed to updating EXIF data with EXIF Tool by Phil Harvey, but remembering the commands and keeping snippets for the various things that I do is tedious and error-prone. I decided to write myself a shell script so that I could easily recall commands and apply changes to my scanned filmed images. But after writing that for a day, I had something that I realized would be useful for others shooting film, and the following 9 days disappeared down a black hole as I wrote over 500 lines of code to enable the script to ask the user for answers to some generic information about themselves, like their names and camera model, etc., and then store that in a file for future use before moving on to ask information about each individual image. The script now traverses a directory of images and asks the shutter speed, aperture and ISO information as well as focal length, date and time, and that then gets embedded into the EXIF information in the file automatically before moving on to the next image. There are a few finishing touches to be coded, but I intend to start selling the script for a small payment over the next few days, so stay tuned for that if you shoot film and have been looking for an easy way to input your shooting information. I know that there are other tools available, but none of them work the way my new script does, and I personally prefer what I've created, so I hope others find it useful too. Back to my point though. I'm going to back off from this for the next day or so to ensure that I enjoy the year-end and New Year celebrations with my wife, especially as I'll be leaving her alone as I travel with my winter tour groups, and that's always somewhat stressful for her as well. As I'm talking about my wife, I wanted to mention one last thing related to my reflection of the last year, and that is that someone emailed me during the year to say that they were disappointed about the fact that I had said that my wife isn't able to help much with my business. They felt that I had been unkind in my remark because there must be ways in which she helps me. I sent a detailed reply spelling out the reasons for the comment, but didn't receive a reply, so I wanted to mention it here in case that person is still listening, but also in case I happen to offend anyone else with my remark. I'd basically said that I'd really like to be able to hire someone to help out because my wife can't help with much of what I do. To hopefully avoid misunderstandings, I wanted to add that my wife cannot use a computer. She can send text messages on her phone and knows how to use some of our electrical appliances better than me, but when it comes to computers, she's not able to use them at all. I'm not saying that to put her down, I'm just stating a fact, And it's that fact that prevents her from being able to do many of the tasks that I would like help with. Financially, I'm still not in a position to hire anyone full-time, but if I was, realistically, why would I hire someone that cannot use a computer when 90% of the work that I need help with is performed on a computer? Having said that, in my brevity, I upset this particular listener by not going on to say that there are many things that my wife helps with and that I am incredibly grateful for. She keeps our receipts in order to take them to our accountant. I have to input the information into our accounts as that's a computer job, but she makes sure that they're all in order and nothing is missing. On the rare occasion now that I do a commercial shoot, she does a great job of helping me to set up studio gear, and there is a certain amount of paperwork that we do each month that involves handwriting documents. Although I can read and write Japanese, her handwriting is much neater than mine, so it always looks better if she does it. We pay her a part-time salary for her time, and I really do appreciate the work that she does, so I'm sorry if anyone else thought I was disrespectful with my comment. I do wonder if this person had listened to many other episodes, though. I would hope that a long-time listener would have also heard me talk about how much I respect my wife's opinion on my images. When I have an important image selection process to complete, I always ask her opinion before finalizing the edit. She's not only impartial, but she also has a great eye, and most importantly, she's not afraid to tell me when something sucks. In any creative process, it's vitally important to have a trusted critique to provide advice, and in my life, that is one of the roles that my wife is great at. Having said that, I should also go on to say that she's also my best friend. We have long talks which we both enjoy, and she sometimes makes me laugh so hard that we both end up crying. And sometimes she's so deep and profound that we both end up crying. If I ever made anyone think that she's anything less than amazing and the most important thing to me on this planet, then I apologize, and I assure you, it was purely unintentional. Unfortunately, like my late father, I sometimes have trouble talking properly because of the foot that ends up in my mouth a little more than most people. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there for this year. I hope 2020 brings us everything that we hope for, and more importantly, that we and our loved ones enjoy good health throughout the year and beyond. All the best and a happy new year. Thanks very much for listening throughout 2019. If you enjoy this podcast, please share a link with your friends. Subscribe in iTunes or your favorite podcast program to ensure uninterrupted delivery. If you have a moment to rate this podcast or leave us a review in iTunes, that helps to keep us relevant in the huge number of podcasts out there now. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye.